You ever hit that point where everything just feels like too much at once? Like your brain's this cluttered room you can't clean no matter how many times you try. That's where I was. My job felt like a joke. I was showing up, doing the same robotic stuff, and coming home with this heavy kind of nothingness in my chest. My girlfriend and I had been in this weird limbo for months. Not exactly fighting, but definitely not okay either. And then there was my mom. Always hovering, always trying to fix things I didn't ask her to fix. I felt like I was suffocating inside my own life. So I did something a little impulsive. I booked this small Airbnb cabin out in Ash Hollow, West Virginia, middle of nowhere. Just a one-bedroom place surrounded by trees and silence. The kind of silence that felt like it might actually help me hear myself think again. The photos made it look perfect. Just this little wooden house sitting on a hill, wrapped in forest and fog. It looked safe in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. I didn't tell anyone much. I just said I needed the weekend to clear my head. My mom, weirdly enough, seemed almost too happy about it, like she was glad I'd finally decided to get out of the house, but in a way that didn't feel entirely comforting. My girlfriend didn't say much either, just gave me that look. The one that says this doesn't make sense but I'm too tired to argue. Maybe it was weird to go off alone like that, I don't know. At the time it felt like the only thing that made sense. Looking back, maybe that should have been the first red flag. The drive up was long but kind of nice, in that quiet, semi-therapeutic way where you get lost in your own head. The farther I got from home, the more it felt like I was peeling something off, like shaking off a layer of stress I didn't even realize I'd been carrying around. By the time I reached Ash Hollow, the air smelled different, cleaner, colder, the kind of crisp that makes your lungs feel brand new. Trees on both sides of the road were lit up with this insane orange and red like something out of a postcard. For a second I thought, yeah, this was a good call. But then, about half a mile from the cabin, I saw these two guys walking along the gravel road. No cars around. Just them. They were maybe in their 30s or 40s, wearing old jackets, walking real slow. I thought they'd maybe nod or give that polite country wave you always hear about. Instead, they just stopped, like completely stopped. One of them actually turned his whole body to face me, just stood there watching my car roll by like I'd done something wrong. I waved, kind of half-hearted I guess, but they didn't move, didn't smile, didn't blink. Just followed my car with their eyes until I couldn't see them anymore in the mirror. It wasn't like they were threatening or anything, not directly. It was more the stillness, the way they didn't react. It was like I was an intruder, and they were trying to figure out if I was worth acknowledging or just pretending didn't exist. I should have felt peace pulling up to the cabin after that. Instead, all I felt was watched, like I'd wandered into somewhere I wasn't meant to be. The host had mentioned there were some trails nearby, just a short drive up the ridge, nothing complicated. I figured a little walk might help me shake the tension. Maybe I was overthinking everything. Maybe those guys were just locals who weren't big on strangers. I kept telling myself that, repeating it, like if I said it enough times, I'd believe it. The trail was empty, not quiet in a meditative way, more like deserted. There were no birds, no wind, not even the usual cracking of branches under squirrels or whatever, just my own footsteps echoing back at me. I didn't go far, maybe 10-15 minutes down a narrow loop before I turned around. The farther I went, the more it felt like the woods were swallowing sound, like even if I screamed, it wouldn't travel very far. On the drive back, just as I was turning into the cabin property, I saw them, or I think it was them. Two figures, about 30 feet down the slope near the tree line, moving quickly, like they'd just been somewhere they shouldn't. It wasn't like they were out for a walk or anything. They were running, but not like they were afraid. More like they were trying not to be seen. I didn't even fully stop the car before I grabbed my backpack and laptop from inside the cabin and threw them into the trunk. I hadn't planned to go anywhere, but suddenly I needed to be out of that space. I didn't want to risk leaving my stuff behind while I went to town for groceries. It felt stupid to trust a lock on a door in a place where strangers didn't smile and shadows ran when they thought you weren't looking. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid, but that didn't stop me from checking the rearview mirror the whole way into town. By the time I got back from town, It was darker than I expected. Not just nighttime dark, but absence of light dark. No street lamps, no porch lights, not even a glow from other houses, because there weren't any. Just that long, winding gravel road swallowed up by trees, and me alone, trying to remember exactly where the cabin sat in all that black. I almost missed it the first time, had to reverse a little when I realized I'd gone too far. The headlights caught it just in time, sitting at the top of the hill like it had been watching me the whole time. I remember parking and just sitting there for a second, not even wanting to get out. And when I finally did, flashlight in hand, the first thing I noticed was the front door. It was cracked open, just an inch, but it was enough. I hadn't left it like that. I'm not careless with stuff like that, especially not out here. My whole body went still for a second. Not fear, exactly. More like this cold, slow-moving realization that something was off. I pushed the door gently open. The inside looked the same at first glance. Cozy, firewood stacked, lights off. But then I noticed the little things. My phone charger was plugged into the wall near the couch. I hadn't plugged it in. I hadn't even used that outlet. My jacket, yeah, the same one I'd tossed on a chair earlier, was now hanging neatly on a hook by the door. It didn't look ransacked. Nothing was stolen, but it felt touched, not in an obvious way. In a someone was here, and they wanted me to know but not be sure kind of way. I stood in the doorway for longer than I probably should have, just staring. I wanted to tell myself I was imagining it, but something about the air in that room, it didn't feel like mine anymore. I tried to settle back in. The groceries were unpacked. The door was locked. Double-checked it, actually. I got the fire going again, sat down with the book I'd barely touched earlier, and told myself I was just being paranoid. It was a quiet place. Things creaked. Shadows looked different. That was all. The silence was starting to feel a little more bearable when, without warning, everything just died. The lights, the hum of the fridge, the heater, all of it gone in an instant. 1 second I was reading. The next, I was sitting in near total darkness, the only light flickering from the fire like it wasn't sure it wanted to stick around either. It wasn't just inconvenient. It felt targeted, sudden, precise. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking just a little. Not from fear exactly, just that kind of adrenaline that you don't fully acknowledge until after. I messaged the host, tried to keep it casual. "Hey, power went out? Any idea why?" He responded almost immediately, which was its own kind of weird. Said it was probably the main breaker. Told me to go outside and check the box near a pole out back, in the pitch black, after everything that had already happened. Like that was a totally normal request. I stared at the message for a while. The screen was glowing way too bright in the dark. I didn't reply, just turned my phone face down, leaned a little closer to the fire, and told myself I'd wait it out. Like the power would magically come back if I gave it enough time. Like the dark wouldn't mean anything if I just stayed still. But deep down I wasn't waiting for the power. I was waiting to hear something else, and that's what scared me. I hadn't moved from the fire. It was the only light left, and for some reason I felt safer near it. Like the shadows couldn't cross that line. The cabin was dead quiet, not peaceful, just empty, like the place itself had paused to see what I'd do next. And then there was a sound, just one, a single creak in the floorboards. That kind of slow pressure-heavy sound you only hear when someone's shifting their weight just enough to announce they're there. I didn't jump, didn't scream. I just turned my head, and he was standing there. In the dark corner near the bathroom, not hiding, not moving, just there, tall enough to seem out of place. I couldn't see his face. The firelight hit the side of his body just enough to show a shape but not a person. No eyes. No features, just the outline of someone who shouldn't be there. Everything in me locked up. There wasn't a decision process. No, what should I do? Just this immediate response, like my body knew the rules and I was too late to question them. I reached for my wallet first, then my bag, then the laptop. No sudden moves, no words. I don't even know if he ever took a step closer. He didn't raise a hand, didn't gesture, just watched. Or, I assume he did. I never saw his eyes. And when I finished, when I'd laid it all out in front of me like some kind of offering, he turned and left. Calm, silent, like it had all gone the way it was supposed to. I still don't know how he got in. No broken locks, no busted windows. I keep trying to remember if I really locked the door. I'm almost sure I did, but maybe I didn't, or maybe it wouldn't have mattered. After he left, whoever he was, I waited. I didn't even touch my phone for a while. Just sat there in the dimming firelight, staring at the empty spot where he'd stood, like if I looked long enough, I'd catch some clue I missed, something that would make it make sense. Eventually, I called the police, told them what happened, what I saw or didn't see. They showed up maybe 30 minutes later, a single cruiser, 2 officers who looked more bored than concerned. They took notes, asked some basic questions, nodded a lot, said they'd keep an eye out for anyone matching the description. I wanted to say what description. I hadn't even seen a face, but I didn't. What was the point? I messaged the host after that, told him there'd been a break-in, that I was rattled, that I'd be leaving in the morning. At first he replied like he cared, said how sorry he was, how that never happens, how safe the area usually is. But then I asked if I could at least get a partial refund, and the tone shifted. Suddenly, he was stiff, polite but distant, said it was unfortunate, but he couldn't accommodate reimbursement under those circumstances. That's when it started nagging at me. The breaker thing, the way he immediately told me where it was, like he knew that exact spot without thinking. I mean, sure, it's his property, but something about how quickly he answered, like he'd done it before, or told someone else to. I can't prove anything. I don't even know what I'm accusing him of. It's just the way it all unfolded, like maybe I wasn't just a guest, maybe someone expected me, or maybe I'm just grasping at anything to make it feel less random. I don't know, still don't. You know, I've been doing the whole Airbnb thing for a while now. Nothing wild, just a side setup that helps cover the costs when I'm not at the beach house. It's in Wilmington, kind of tucked away near the coast. Not a big luxury spot or anything, just this modest 3-bedroom, 1-bath place that looks a lot nicer when the sun hits it right. 2 of the bedrooms I leave open for guests. Twin beds in one, a queen in the other, and I keep the master locked up. That one's mine. I always figured it made more sense to keep some of my stuff there. Things like clothes, shoes, beach gear, just everyday things I don't want to keep schlepping back and forth from Pittsburgh every time I come down. Nothing valuable, really. No laptops, no jewelry, nothing that make anyone want to break in. But still, I keep it secure. There's a regular lock, and I added a deadbolt a while back. The door's solid wood, no windows. If someone wanted in, they'd have to go full demolition mode. Honestly, I've never had a problem. I screen my guests pretty well. I don't rent to big groups or anything sketchy. I usually prefer couples, small families, even solo travelers. People who just want a weekend by the water, not a party pad. I've had the occasional odd request or noise complaint from neighbors, but nothing serious. The system works, you know. Keep it simple, keep it secure, and everyone's happy. I even built the cleaning fee into the rental price and had a local woman I trust handle everything between stays. It became a rhythm. Host, clean, restock, lock up, repeat. The kind of rhythm you stop questioning because it just works. No red flags, no gut feelings, just a clean little loop. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I had no reason to think anything could go wrong. Not then. That's probably the part that messes with me the most. It wasn't exactly a planned trip. One of those spur-of-the-moment things you justify by saying you need a break, even if what you really need is just to feel like you're in control of something. Pittsburgh was still clinging to winter gray skies, that damp cold that seeps into your bones, and I thought, screw it, I'll head down to Wilmington for a bit. I told myself it'd be good to get out, clean the house myself, save a little money by skipping the cleaner this time. I've done that before. Sometimes I actually like the quiet, mindless routine of scrubbing surfaces and folding sheets. Helps me reset. The drive, though? Brutal. 11 hours on the road with nothing but gas station coffee, podcasts I barely listened to, and long stretches of silence that had my brain looping back on itself. I didn't stop much, just wanted to get there before I lost my motivation. By the time I pulled into the driveway, it was late. Pitch black, streetlights casting just enough glow to make everything feel still. The kind of quiet that's too quiet, but I was too fried to care. I unlocked the front door, grabbed my duffel from the back seat, didn't even glance around the living room. I didn't check for messes, didn't notice if something felt off. I just went straight to the master. Muscle memory, really. Key in, deadbolt out, door swings open. Dropped my bag near the dresser and fell into bed face first, fully clothed. I didn't brush my teeth, didn't even plug in my phone. I remember thinking just one thing before I passed out. God, I'll deal with everything tomorrow. But tomorrow ended up being the problem. I don't remember dreaming. It was one of those dead sleep knockouts, like when your body gives out before your brain catches up. But something pulled me out. Hard. 1 second I was out cold, the next I was wide awake, staring at the ceiling in the dark, breathing like I'd just run uphill. No sounds, no lights, nothing obvious, just this pressure, like something in the air shifted. You ever have that? That weird invisible thud in your chest, like you're reacting to something before you even understand what it is. That's what it felt like. I reached for my phone, checked the time, just past 10. Not even an hour since I'd crashed. I sat there for a minute, squinting into the dark, telling myself it was probably the long drive messing with my head, maybe the house settling, maybe my body still buzzing from too much caffeine and road silence. But the feeling wouldn't go. It clung to me like static. So I got up, slowly. The floor creaked a little under me, and I remember noting that, thinking that's normal, just trying to ground myself in things that made sense. I moved through the hallway, past the bathroom, into the living room. Everything looked exactly as it should. Couch pillows untouched, dining table clean, even the faint smell of that generic lemon-scented cleaner I keep under the sink. Nothing was out of place, and that was what got me. It was too neat, like no one had used anything. I walked into the first guest room, bed perfectly made, no signs of luggage, not even a stray hair on the pillowcase. It hit me then. According to the app, someone had stayed here for 3 nights. But standing in that house, in that moment, I couldn't tell. I don't usually bother with the security cam unless someone's late checking out or leaves the place trashed. It's just one of those porch cams, motion-activated, basic stuff. But for some reason, that night, something pushed me to open the app and take a look. Maybe it was that lingering unease. The way the house felt more like a staged rental than a space that had actually been lived in for 3 nights. I pulled up the footage, expecting to see what I always do, someone rolling in with a suitcase, maybe a couple making small talk on the porch. But there was just one guy, just Diego, booked under his name, showed up alone, walked right in, mid-afternoon 3 days ago. That was it. No one else came through the door after that. No partner, no visitors, not even him stepping out for groceries or a smoke. Just that one clip. It was like he entered the house and vanished into it. I refreshed the feed, closed the app, reopened it, went through the archive again. I don't even know what I thought I'd find the 5th or 6th time around. Maybe I expected the app to glitch, show me new footage, fill in the blanks. But it didn't. And that's what really started to eat at me. If he never left, was he still in the house, or did the camera miss something? Could it miss something? I started wondering if someone had tampered with it, or if he came in alone but met someone here. I don't know. None of it tracked. None of it added up with the clean beds, the untouched rooms, the silence. It felt like I was chasing something invisible, like I was already too late to catch whatever it was. I kept telling myself it was all in my head. That's what you do, right? You rationalize. You walk into every room, flip on the light, open closets, like you're checking off boxes. Under the beds, behind the curtains, inside the bathroom cabinet, anywhere someone could maybe hide even if it felt ridiculous. I just wanted to prove myself wrong. I was in the second guest room, halfway through the same motions, open closet, scan, shut it, when I heard it. A click. Not loud, not like something dropped or broke. It was soft, deliberate, and it came from behind me. Specifically from the master bedroom, the one I locked, the one I had unlocked only for myself. It took me a few seconds to even turn around. My legs didn't want to move. I just stared at the door like it had a pulse. The air felt thick, like my ears were filling with water. I crouched down, inching toward the frame. I don't even know why I looked under the door. I guess some part of me already knew. And there they were. 2 bare feet, not moving, not pacing, just standing there, maybe a foot or 2 back from the crack in the door. I remember how my hands started trembling before my brain even processed it. I stumbled back, couldn't feel my knees, just scrambled down the hallway toward the kitchen like instinct kicked in. I reached for the knife block, grabbing for the big carving knife I always keep closest to the edge. My hand hit nothing. It was gone. The rest of them were there. Paring knives, bread knife, the weird dull one no one uses. But the one I wanted, the one that actually mattered, was missing. And that's when I stopped thinking. I didn't think. I just left. Slipped out the front door like a ghost and walked straight to the curb with my phone already in my hand. My heart was pounding, not like adrenaline, more like something low and steady, like a warning bell that wouldn't shut off. I called for help, gave the address, tried to explain, but I don't even remember what I said. Words like intruder and locked room and kitchen knife came out, but they felt thin, like they didn't really capture what was happening. By the time the cops showed up, I was standing under the porch light, arms crossed, not even sure what I was hoping they'd find. But there he was, Diego, sitting on the couch like he owned the place, like none of it was weird. He didn't look surprised, didn't look mad, just calm. That eerie kind of calm that doesn't match the situation. No knife, no signs of forced entry, nothing they could hold him on. He mumbled something about needing a place for one more night, some excuse that barely made sense. I couldn't really process what he was saying. I just kept staring at him, at the way he acted, like all of this was normal. They told me it was a misunderstanding, a civil issue, that I should take it up with Airbnb, and then they left. With him, just let him walk away. I reported it to Airbnb, and they banned his account. That was supposed to make me feel better. It didn't. He was in my room. He took the knife. I know what I saw. I keep running it over in my head, trying to figure out what he wanted. And I can't stop thinking, what if I hadn't woken up? The next morning didn't feel like morning. I hadn't slept. I just lay there with the curtains drawn tight, listening for sounds that never came. When the light finally started creeping in through the blinds, I got up, made coffee I didn't drink, and stepped out onto the porch, hoping the air would feel different, cleaner, lighter. It didn't. I must have been out there for 20 minutes, staring at the same stretch of quiet street when I saw her, my neighbor from next door. She's older, always out in her garden, always watching the block like it's her job. I barely know her, but she walked over like we'd spoken 100 times. She didn't even say hello, just asked if that guy was still around. It took me a second to realize what she meant. She was talking about Diego, said she'd seen him out on the porch a few nights in a row, just standing there, not pacing, not talking on the phone, not doing anything, just standing, looking out, sometimes for 10-15 minutes, no cigarette, no drink in hand, just stillness. I didn't know what to say. I think I mumbled something about him leaving. She nodded like that answered her question and walked back to her yard, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The image of him standing there, silent, unmoving, night after night, it burned itself into my head. I hadn't even known he was doing that, and now I can't unknow it. What was he looking at? What was he thinking? Was he watching something? Was he waiting? I keep going back to that. Waiting, and if I hadn't shown up when I did, I honestly don't know how that would have ended. You know how it is after graduation. Everything feels weightless. No school, no real plans yet. Just this weird space in between where anything seems possible and nothing really matters. So when Lena offered up the idea of a weekend cabin trip, we all jumped in without thinking twice. Me, Lena, Marcus, his girlfriend Brianna, and Shane, who never really talked much but always showed up anyway. We stuffed our bags into Lena's tiny hatchback, like we were heading to some summer music festival, barely had room for snacks. The drive was smooth, quiet, one of those roads that winds through New Hampshire forests where the GPS starts second-guessing itself. The place we booked was in Jefferson, kind of out there but not off the grid or anything. The Airbnb photos made it look like a rustic little hideaway, real cozy. And to be fair, when we pulled up, it was exactly that. A small A-frame tucked between trees with the sun hitting it just right. You could have slapped it on a postcard. But right next to it, like someone forgot to crop it out of the listing, was this old shed or maybe a barn. I couldn't tell. The wood was all gray and warped like it had been soaked and dried too many times. It leaned sideways like a drunk holding onto a parking meter. No paint, no lock, just standing there, sagging in the dirt like it had nowhere better to be. Nobody said anything about it. Not when we got out, not while we unpacked. But it stuck out to me, like weirdly stuck out. I kept catching myself glancing at it. It just felt wrong, not dramatic wrong, just like it wasn't supposed to be there. That first night felt normal, like any other weekend trip we'd taken before. We unpacked, threw our bags wherever, and cracked open whatever drinks we managed to sneak into the cooler. The hot tub in the garage/rec room was one of those selling points that made the place feel like a steal. It was probably too old to still be running, but it worked, and we weren't about to complain. The water stung a little from the chlorine. Lena sat next to me, legs tucked close, kind of zoning out, while Marcus and Brianna mumbled and laughed to themselves across from us. I wasn't really listening, just letting the warmth sink into my arms, trying not to think too hard. Shane hadn't joined us, said something vague about being tired. I didn't press. He was always like that, quiet in a way that never felt rude, just distant. What I remember most was the silence, the kind that presses on your ears after the hot tub jets stop. It's different out there. No traffic, no buzzing streetlights, just stillness, the kind that makes you feel like you're being watched even when you're not. Later, Lena and I sat on the deck. The others had gone in. The stars were brutal, too many of them, too clear, like staring into something ancient. I tried to enjoy it, but something shifted out near the tree line, just past the edge of where the motion light cut off. Footsteps. It didn't sound fast, but they weren't random either. Not like a raccoon or something. Heavy, intentional. I said it was probably an animal. Lena nodded. I think we both wanted that to be true, but it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like anything I could name. The next morning was slower. We made lazy breakfasts, eggs, toast, whatever we could scrape together from the grocery run we did on the way up. No one talked much about the night before, which was weird. You'd think someone would have brought up the footsteps or asked, "Hey, did we all hear that?" But no, it was like we silently agreed to just file it away. Shane pulled out his phone at some point while we were sitting around the living room. Said he got some decent long exposure shots of the stars. He was into that kind of thing. Cameras, lenses, apps with names I couldn't remember. He started flipping through them, holding the phone up so we could all see. The sky in those pictures was beautiful. I won't lie, just this wash of deep blue and white freckles everywhere. I almost made a joke about how dramatic it looked when he flipped past one a little too fast, but then he stopped, went back, zoomed in, and there it was, a shape, blurry, sure, not a face, not something you could draw, but it was there, between two trees near the edge of the deck. It was tall, way too tall to be any of us messing around. No defined limbs, no details, just a dark vertical shape, like someone mid-step, caught too far from the light. No one said anything, not right away. I think Marcus made a noise, like he was about to say something, but stopped himself. Shane just shrugged and kept flipping. No theories, no jokes. It just hung there between us. I wanted to believe it was a smudge or some camera glitch, but I kept coming back to those footsteps from the night before. The timing felt too close, too clean, or men. The plan was to get out, get moving, shake off whatever weird tension had sunk into us. Cherry Mountain wasn't too far. Decent trail, nothing crazy. I figured some sun and fresh air would clear my head, like maybe if I kept walking forward, I could leave the feeling behind me. We packed up light and hit the trail before noon. I didn't say anything to Lena, but I watched her more than usual. She was walking in that way people do when they're trying to look relaxed. Shoulders loose, breathing steady, but her eyes kept drifting behind us. Over her shoulder, then back to the trail, over and over. She never mentioned it, didn't have to. I knew we were both thinking about that moment on the deck. The slow crunch of leaves, the way the dark just swallowed up everything past a certain line. That shape in the photo. None of it had left me. The others didn't seem bothered. Marcus was loud as ever, tossing rocks into the trees and making dumb jokes that only he laughed at. Brianna was half present, mostly focused on her phone, holding it up every few steps like a signal would suddenly bless us out of nowhere. Shane stayed at the back, same as always, just trailing without comment. What really started to gnaw at me was how empty the trail felt. Usually on hikes, even quiet ones, you pass someone, a couple, a group, a ranger, something, but we hadn't seen anyone. No footprints in the dirt, no voices in the distance. It was just us in the woods, and that quiet wasn't peaceful. It was thick, like something waiting for us to walk past it without noticing. We got back from the hike late afternoon. The sun was still high enough to make everything look warmer than it felt. I was sitting on the porch steps, peeling off my boots, when Lena nodded toward the shed like it was some casual suggestion. Said it didn't look that bad in the daylight. Easier to check it out now than keep thinking about it. I didn't want to go. I knew I didn't, but saying no would have made it a thing, and I didn't want to be the guy who made it a thing, so I got up and followed. The door looked worse up close, the kind of rotted wood that splinters if you touch it wrong. Lena gave it a push and it groaned open like something from a bad horror movie. I laughed, mostly to pretend I wasn't tense. She didn't say anything. Inside it was darker than it should have been. No windows, just slits in the walls where boards had warped apart. The smell hit first. Smoke maybe? Or mold. Something stale that crawled into your throat and stayed there. Dust floated in the air like it didn't want to settle. There was junk everywhere. Torn up boxes, some beer cans, a busted folding chair, and a bunch of papers crumpled in one corner. Yellowed and curled like they'd been through a dozen seasons. I stepped over something soft and kicked up more dirt than I meant to. One of the papers had something written on it. I couldn't make out the whole thing. Just the word out, big and messy. Could have been part of a sentence. Could have been a warning. Lena turned before I could say anything. We walked back without talking. She brushed it off. I let her, but that word stayed stuck in my head. I've never been big on campfires. Something about the way they flicker, too easy for shadows to play tricks. But we lit one anyway. By that point it was part of the routine. Food, drinks, somebody trying to act like things were normal. Marcus was loud, like always. Probably louder than he needed to be. I sat on one of the folding chairs we dragged out and stared too long at the trees. The fire felt like a barrier, like we were trying to pretend we were safer than we were. Nobody mentioned the shed, or the hike, or the picture. Like if we didn't say it out loud, it wouldn't grow legs. I kept checking the tree line, thinking I was being dramatic, telling myself it was all in my head. That same anxious loop of thoughts spiraling without direction. I remember leaning forward to poke at the fire, and that's when it happened. No slow build-up this time. No silence stretching thin. Just movement. Fast. Heavy. The crunching of leaves and twigs came from behind us, barreling toward the clearing like someone was sprinting straight at the fire. We didn't even have time to guess. Then the flash, this sudden sharp green burst that lit up everything for half a second. I still don't know what caused it. Could have been a transformer, could have been something else. Doesn't really matter, because right then it lit up the woods enough to see Brianna bolt upright and scream. She saw something. I believe her. Everyone ran. I remember standing there for a second too long. Just one beat too slow, and in that beat, I swear I saw something. A figure, low to the ground, just beyond the fire's reach. It didn't flinch. It just shifted. Like it had been watching all along. We called the cops because that's what you do when you can't explain something and you're scared enough to admit it. They showed up a little after midnight. Just one cruiser, one guy, probably bored out of his mind before our call came in. He walked around with his flashlight, shined it through the woods like it meant something. Nothing turned up, obviously. He said it was probably a transformer that blew, explained the green flash. Said a fisher cat might have made the noise, if not a coyote. Gave us the kind of answer that's meant to sound comforting without actually confirming anything. We all just nodded. Even Brianna, who'd been shaking earlier, just nodded like she believed him. But afterward, she looked at me and said it wasn't an animal. Not the way it moved. Not the way it stopped when the light hit. That stuck with me. We didn't argue about staying. No one even brought it up. We left within the hour. I think I shoved everything into my bag without checking twice. I don't remember if I left anything behind. At that point, it didn't feel worth the risk to go back inside if I had. I haven't looked back at the photos since. Shane still has them, I think, but I don't ask. I tell myself it's better not to. I keep wondering if it was just bad timing. Someone passing through, maybe messing with us for fun. But part of me feels like we were expected. Like whatever was out there knew the exact night we'd be there. Knew where the light ended. Knew how long we'd stay before running. I don't have answers. Just that same old question looping in my head. How long were we being watched?